Okay, I'm going to call to meeting the Rural Committee of the San Diego Commission on Police Practices. Today's date is Thursday, May 20th, 2021. Let me begin by calling the roll. My name is Doug Case, and I am the chair of the committee. Oops. Hold on a second. And we have committee members Joe Craver, Nancy Vaughn, and Diana Dent. Commission Chair Brandon Hilpert, who is an ex-official member. And we have our executive director, Charmaine Mosley. The next item on the agenda is non-agenda public comment, and this is comment regarding items that are not on the agenda but are within the purview of the Rules Committee. Are there any attendees who have non-agenda public comment? I see 3 hands that are raised, but I think that they are for the agenda. Well, there's 2 hands that are still raised.
If we want, we could ask if they wanted to do non-agenda public comment. They could type that in chat that they wanted to speak for non-agenda public comment, and we can call them that way.
Okay. Well, Andrea St. Julian's hand is still raised, so why don't we call on her?
Charmaine, if you want to make me a co-host, if you can add another one, I can deal with taking people off mute.
Good.
Thank you.
I'm looking at the
Okay. I just turned Andrea on, so if you want to speak, go ahead. Oh
no,
no.
I'm sorry. I don't have a non-agenda item. I want to speak on the an agenda item, but thank you.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
And then second, so then that brings us to our agenda items, and we have 2 agenda items. And I'm guessing that most of the attendees are interested in speaking to item number 2. And so unless there's an objection, I'm going to reverse the order and do item number 2 first, and then we will do item number 1. And so let me explain a little bit about how the process works. So the process is that we will have a explanation of the issue, which I will present, and then we will have Charmaine give us a summary of the public comment that was received via the web form, and then we will call on members of the public who are present who wish to speak to the agenda item. And since there are only 5 present, we were expecting more. We will allow each of them 2 minutes to speak, and then the committee will begin its discussion and take a vote. And then, as a reminder, the actions of the Rules Committee are not final actions. We are simply a subcommittee of the commission. And so the recommendations, both the items that are on the agenda today are items that were referred to the Rules Committee, and we'll be presenting those to the full commission at our open meeting of this coming Tuesday. And so for a little bit of a background, so that people have some context and also understand the scope of the issue that is before us today, let me give a little bit of a background about how the commission works. Currently, the commission is continuing to review investigations that have been completed by Internal Affairs. As obviously everybody on the commission knows, but not everybody in the public is aware, we are a hybrid commission, and so we will have the ability, and in some cases the duty, to conduct independent investigations of incidents. But beyond that, we will continue to do what the old CRB did, which was to review each and every investigation completed by Internal Affairs and indicate whether we agree or disagree with their findings and make any comments as appropriate. The way that we go about doing that is that we work in 3-member teams. The teams are now able to work remotely. That actually went into place before Measure B took effect, but it actually ties well into Measure B. And so we, all of the elements in the case file, the body-worn camera, the interviews, the investigators report, police reports, all the other evidence are put into a secure Google Drive, and the team has the ability to review those and then make their own decisions on whether they agree or disagree with the Internal Affairs findings. If they have questions, they have the ability to ask questions of Internal Affairs, either by submitting them in writing, and they can get a response in writing, or sometimes it's an in-person meeting or a Zoom meeting or a telephone call. The team has the ability to suggest to IA that they change their findings. They also have the ability to suggest that there be other allegations added. And so something that is unique about the review model in San Diego is that Internal Affairs does not close their case until it has been reviewed by formerly the CRB and now the Commission. And then when the team has completed its job, it writes up a report. Typically, the IA report is about maybe 40 pages long. It can vary. It can be more than 100 pages. Sometimes it's as few as 10 pages. The team writes up its report, which is less lengthy, but it still includes all of the details. Currently, our reports are maybe an average of 10 pages, but they could be shorter or they could be longer. And then during a closed session where the public is not allowed to attend, the cases are presented. Present during the closed session, and our closed sessions are currently being held on Zoom. The attendees are the commissioners, the commission staff, which consist of currently of the executive director, the assistant executive chief of the police department, the captain of internal affairs, and the two or one or two of the lieutenants who supervise the investigators and are familiar with the details of each case. The presentation is done in 3 parts. First is the presentation, and so the team presents their case. Now, because we were able to do things remotely, the commissioners can read the case in advance. They used to have the case read to them verbatim at the meeting. Now they can read the case in advance. And so the team presents an overview of the case, highlights the critical issues, indicates what IA's findings are, what their findings are, whether they agree or disagree, and whether they have any comments. And then we open it up to questions. And there's an unlimited number of questions. If the team is unable to answer a question, they can defer that question to one of the police representatives who are present, who can then ask the question. And then at that point in time, we dismiss the police representatives. I might note that under the CRB's former policies, we did not dismiss the police representatives during our deliberations or during the vote. They were present for the deliberations and for the vote. Under the new process, after we have the question and answer period, the representatives from the police department are in our virtual meetings. They're put into a waiting room, and then we conduct our deliberations, which are done under Robert's rules, and so everybody has an opportunity to speak. And then we conduct a vote, and then after the vote, we bring the police representatives back in so we can begin the next case. We began this in January when we adopted our new bylaws and our new rules. And there was some discussion of that. It was not a unanimous vote to not allow the police in for the deliberations and for the vote, but that was the decision that was made. Since that decision was made and we've implemented it over several months, there has been some concerns about the new procedure. And there were those who believed that the police should be there for the deliberations. I have not heard anybody express a belief that the police should be there for the vote. But the rationale that has been expressed for wanting the police there for the deliberations are that sometimes questions come up during the deliberations. Although I might mention that they're in the waiting rooms, they can be invited back to answer the questions. But the major reason that has been expressed is that oftentimes the comments of the commissioners, they want the police department to hear. For example, oftentimes we may agree with the finding, but we have some serious concerns about how the situation was handled. And so the officer may have, for example, operated within policy, but the situation could have been avoided altogether or could have been handled much differently. We may have concerns about how the investigation was done. And some of the commissioners think that, believe that they want that it is best for the police to be present to hear those concerns. And in fact, in recent times, when we've had concerns, the police department has come back to a subsequent meeting and addressed the concerns and indicated, this situation that you brought up at your last meeting, we have taken the following actions to correct it. And in fact, we've heard not only from commissioners, but from the police department that they would like to be there to listen to those concerns. There also has been expressed that sometimes commissioners during deliberations may make inaccurate statements that they may not realize are inaccurate, and the police who may be aware of the fact that those statements are inaccurate are not present to make those corrections. And so because we heard several concerns, we brought it back to the commission at our meeting last week, and there was a divided opinion and strong opinions on both sides. And so we referred it to today's rules committee to come back to the commission at our meeting next week with a recommendation of whether we should modify our policy that the police department representatives are not allowed to be present for the deliberations or for the vote. And so the question is, should we change that policy that we adopted that they cannot be present, or should we modify it in some way? So that's kind of the overview. And with that, I'm going to ask Charmaine to give us a summary of the public comment that we received via the web.
Sure. So over the last two days, we received approximately 170 public comments. It's been like a challenge going through them and trying to filter them out. So I was able to do that. And a majority of those comments were in favor of the CPP not having SDPD in its closed meetings. So I will go ahead and read some of the comments received so you can get an idea of what was said. And I just wanted to also note that all of these comments that we received will be made a part of the meeting minutes. The first one was submitted by Deirdre McLeod. She comments, residents of San Diego voted overwhelmingly for independent oversight of the police. It is the guiding principle of the CPP. The presence of police representatives during closed meetings gives them undue influence over the deliberative process, up to and including opportunities for intimidation during and after discussions, even if attempts are made to mitigate that influence. If certain commissioners feel they won't properly be able to explain the context of decisions made during closed sessions, either to the police department or to the San Diego community that clearly wants more transparency in this process, then those commissioners respectfully need to resign and make way for other community members with a more serious understanding of what independent oversight of the police truly means and what the residents of San Diego overwhelmingly want. Second comment received is from Francine Maxwell. It says, hi, please vote no on having police and representatives in closed session for our next CPP. You are interim and the newly trusted commission should make this decision. Yes, they can change it, but no need to waste time. You are the interim CPP, but your culture is still intact. CRB, stop it. Next person is Ashley Roberts. She comments, the voters have spoken. Measure B passed with a clear initiative. The Commission on Police Practices must be community-led, transparent, and most of all, independent of police officers and staff. Allowing police officers and staff to attend closed-door meetings is the antithesis of what the voters and citizens want and pass. The interim commission must vote no and continue to abide by the precedent that the voters set. Patrick Dudley comments, the interim commission on police practices must vote no on allowing police officers and their staff to attend closed session meetings. Measure B made it clear. The commission on police practices need to be independent, transparent, and community-led. Allowing police officers and their staff to attend closed meetings would exacerbate the independence and transparency of the commission. The closed session meetings are critical to justice for all and for robust discussions. Do we allow police or police staff access or defendants or their colleagues into the jury deliberations room? Thank you. And the last one I'm going to read is it's from Steph Goodrill. It says, we won't go backwards. The interim commission on police practices must vote no on allowing police officers or their staff to attend closed session meetings. Measure B made it clear. The Commission on Police Practices needs to be independent, transparent, and community-led. Thank you. And we received approximately 70 emails based on this similar to this one comment. The rest of the comments that we received out of the 170 expressed similar feelings.
Okay, and there were no, all of the public comments received via the web were opposed to making a change in the policy. Is that correct?
I believe so. I'm not going to go through all of them, but majority of the ones that I read expressed that they did not want the CPP to have the police department in its closed session meetings.
Okay, so we will attach the spreadsheet that includes the comments as well as the commenters' names to within minutes of the meeting. And so now we will go on to public comment by attendees. We've got a couple more join us, but I think we can still give everybody 2 minutes. And so let me pull up my screen to do a timer. Oops. Hold on a second here. I think I have to go back to reset it 2 minutes. Okay, and so I'm going to allow Brandon to call on the people, and I will then run the timer. So Brandon, do you want to start?
The first one we have is Andrea St. Julian.
Thank you, Brandon. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Great. This is Andrea St. Julian, co-chair of San Diegans for Justice. The commission's efforts to allow police officers into its closed sessions is the community's worst fears realized. 75% of San Diego voters decided that they were not satisfied with the functioning of the CRB and instead wanted the more robust commission. Despite this clear mandate, the commission has chosen to take a path that assaults the very core of Measure B and what the commission is supposed to stand for: independence and transparency. The interim commission created governing documents allowing it to invite individuals into the closed sessions as it saw fit. The community trusted the new commission to use that discretion wisely. Instead, this new commission seeks to betray the community's trust by using this loophole. Unfortunately, the commission's decision works to erode the goodwill and trust that the community offered to the interim commissioners who were members of the old CRB. I am fortunate to have worked with several commissioners who are seeking to fulfill the mandate of Measure B. Today's efforts by the commission as a whole, however, shows that the commission is seeking to do little more than recreate the old CRB under the name of the commission. The commission needs to refuse to allow any officers or their staff into closed session. It also needs to get back on track by seeking to fulfill the purpose of Measure B rather than to thwart it. Thank you.
Okay, next speaker.
The next one is Genevieve Jones-Wright.
Hello, this is Genevieve Jones-Wright, and we just heard a sample of the comments that were all in favor of disallowing SDPD's staff to attend closed session meetings. And I think that those comments were spot on, especially Mr. Dudley's comment about allowing for defendants and police officers to be in the jury deliberation room. I think what we have to realize is that when an overwhelming majority of San Diegans voted for Measure B, we voted for transparency, we voted for fairness, and most importantly, independence. It was independence from the city attorney, the mayor, and the police department itself. The closed sessions of this interim commission on police practices must be closed to staff of the law enforcement agency they are charged with investigating. This is the only reasonable and proper recommendation that can come out of this body if you truly care about transparency, fairness, and honoring the will of the people. A vote that allows for their presence is a vote in direct contravention of the will of the people and against the independence we community members fought so hard for. So I really do hope that you all take the comments from the community members that overwhelmingly support not permitting staff from SDPD or SDPD officers to attend closed sessions. It just would not make sense. And it would be completely improper, violating the spirit of Measure B itself. So thank you very much for this opportunity.
Okay,
Thank you. Our next one is Byrne.
Yeah, hi, my name is Patrick Byrne.
Oh, sorry, go ahead. I
Am I-
accidentally stopped you from talking. I apologize.
Am
Go
I
ahead.
good? Am I good? Can I be heard?
Yeah, please go
Okay,
ahead.
great. Yeah, so unlike the previous two speakers who I'm familiar with their professional work in criminal justice, I'm just a member of the public. One of the reasons why you guys might not have as many people calling in is, like everything else in San Diego, it is massively, aggressively hostile. As somebody who's moved here from elsewhere, it is striking how hard it is to get any kind of public comment. I knew exactly what I was looking for in Googling Commission on Police Practices, et cetera, get turned up nothing. So anyway, here I am, and I just want to echo what everyone else is saying. It was a 75% vote in favor of this commission as constituted. To do anything other than what the voters overwhelmingly voted for is an anti-democratic subversion of democracy. If you find yourself in the position of being appointed to this commission and feeling that it should be done differently than how the voters chose it to be done, you need to resign, and you're welcome to collect signatures for a new petition and see how well people want what you want. We elected people to oversee the police, not to be chums with them, not to be partners with them, not to have them in the room while you make your deliberations. You are to oversee them. You are to be their superiors. You are to have an adversarial relationship with them and to protect the public from them. You are the watchers who watch the watchmen. And again, I apologize, my comments aren't as polished as those who come before me, but you are independents. So be independent, so act like it. If this job is not what you thought you were signing up for, there's been a pandemic and millions of people are out of work. So I'm sure there's somebody who shares the right mindset to do this job, who has the free time. Thank you very much.
Okay, our next speaker is Marissa.
Hi, good morning to all of you. I am Marisa Talbert. I'm one of the co-chairs along with Andrea St. Julian of Sandiegans for Justice. And as everyone who spoke before me has mentioned, this is completely against the will of the voters. Closed meetings are not open to the public. So why would they be open to the entity that's being investigated? It is completely unacceptable. It is against the will of the voters. We voted for independence. Independence is the key to success of Measure B, and independence is the key to the Commission on Police Practices. Please do not allow the police department to be in the meetings with you all and the commission making decisions. That is not what we are here for. We need to remain independent. Thank you so much.
And with that, I don't believe we have anyone who has raised their hand who would like to speak. If any of the remaining attendees want to speak, go ahead and like hit the raise hand button, or you can always type in the chat that you wanted to speak. Okay, we just got a new one. Yasmin, go ahead.
Clarify really quick. This is item 2.
Yes. We went in reverse order because we thought there was going to be more comment on this. So we did number 2 first, then we're going to go to item number 1. Oh, sorry. Yasmin, you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Okay. Yep, go ahead.
Good morning, folks. My name is Yasmin Abid. I'm the youth organizer with Mid-City Can, and I'm here today to just reiterate what the community has been saying, that we are absolutely in against the police officers being in closed sessions, as well as any staff being in closed sessions from the police department, because if community is not able to be in those closed sessions, then no one else should be allowed into those closed sessions in general. So we are absolutely against that. That stands against everything Measure B came to fix and to make better. And really passing this and approving this is a huge slap in the face for everyone, for the 75% who voted yes on Measure B. So I'm here to ask you all to please not go ahead with this, because really it's really important that we follow community lead. We say yes to what community is asking. Our job here is to make sure that we're representing the community. So that's what I'm here to ask today. Thank you all so much for this time. And I look forward to seeing all of you voting no to allowing police officers in the IA into those closed sessions for now. And then in the future, I would hope that those closed sessions are also in general discussed, because community should be allowed into everything. And this should be public in general. Just a side note for future things. Yes, and we do have folks that didn't have the link that will be joining, so I would ask that you all please allow them the opportunity to speak. I just got the link right now and I'm sharing it with them. Thank you so much.
Okay, I think that's it for public comments right now.
Okay, then if there's no more public comment, we will move into the commission itself. And it occurred to me that one thing I forgot to mention in the overview was part of the rationale for establishing the new policy of not allowing them into deliberations and the vote. And that was the fear of some that having them present would influence the outcome of the deliberations, that some people on the commission may feel intimidated by having the police present and knowing how they vote on a particular issue. So those were some of the reasons why the new policy was adopted in back in January. And so the question before us today is whether or not I have not heard any suggestion that the police should be permitted back in for the votes. The question is, I believe, whether or not we should change our policy that the police are not present for the deliberations. And
And Doug, if I can interrupt real quick, a little bit of feedback there. There was a chatted comment from Donna Kaiser. I'll just read it real quick. I'm wholly opposed to having SDPD present during these presentations. They already had a chance to present their case. The other side isn't given a chance to present as well. The police don't need yet another chance to put their thumb on the scale. This is the fox guarding the hen house. What in the world are you thinking by even proposing that this be possible?
okay. And so I have some thoughts and some a proposal which may address some of the concerns of the people who want to make a change, but let me throw it open first to the other commissioners and see what their thoughts are. Does anybody on the commission want to speak?
Yes.
Okay, Nancy.
Okay, I want for the people who are part of this and are listening in. The police do not present in our closed meetings. The only presentation is by the case review team, who has already discussed any issues they have with the IA staff and come to their conclusion, their independent conclusion. And the police are not presenting. They are sitting and listening and answering questions that other people on the board may have, on the commission may have. And forgive me, I was on CRB for 12 years, so it's hard to get away from saying the board. But the police are there to answer questions that the team may not have answered in their presentation. And they're also there to hear comments that come from other commissioners other than the case review team, because they've already discussed in private meetings, they've discussed with the team the issues the team might have. And we don't bring presentations to the full commission that haven't been fully discussed with IA if we have a question, and if we have an issue, and if we disagree with them. But the police are not there advocating. They are not there as advocates for their position. And the only time they get a chance to say something like that is if there is a real disagreement with an IA finding. They can explain their position to the rest of the commission, because in many cases, the case review team doesn't represent their position, and the full commission has a right to know what the police had to say. The other thing I was going to say was in jury deliberations, the jury still has access to get answers to questions and go back to the judge and go back to get answers to their questions. And so we should at least have access to the police department to answer our questions as we're doing our deliberations. That was it. Thank you.
Okay. Other members of the committee or the commission?
I'll chime in real quick. I think there's really two issues that we're kind of discussing here. So I think the first one, which is really what was on the agenda, is do we allow the police department to remain during comments where we deliberate a case and voting? That was what was on the agenda for today. I think what we could do is, obviously the public, at least the public who has spoken on this, is very adamant about it. I know it's hard to say you have to trust the process. I get that. But what I'm almost thinking is, when it comes to that component, I would probably propose that we keep it as it is now. So internal affairs would not be in during comments or deliberation and voting. And then if there's an issue that we see from a case, I think we just formalize it by writing a memo and sending it to the chief of police and internal affairs. I think that hopefully will help address the community's concern about having them there for deliberation and voting. I think the other issue that we're kind of hearing from the comments is, people don't want them in a meeting at all. And I think that's a wholly separate topic. I think we probably would need to set that up as a separate agenda item since it wasn't officially on this agenda. But I think there's two different issues here. And I just want to kind of restate the issue that we had for today's agenda was specifically having internal affairs there for our comment deliberation period and then the voting, which again, right now, we do not have them there for that. But that's kind of my thought. I think what we can do is we can satisfy the community's concerns about having them there during that process by, if there is an area where we disagree, we can formalize it by writing a memo and sending that to the chief of police and the captain of internal affairs.
Okay. And I might mention that one of the speakers, I forget who it was, and some of the comments in the chat have compared it to allowing the defense team into the jury room, or either side into the jury room. And really that's what our deliberations are, when we act as a jury and we take the vote. And so that's the issue, is whether or not we're going to allow any police participation in the deliberations and the vote. And I'm not sure that it would require any change in policy to do what Brandon is suggesting, because I think that we have the ability right now to, we've never done that before, because, but it doesn't mean that we can't do that. And I do think that that would address most of the concerns of the individuals who want the police there to hear the deliberations. There are pros and cons, but this, I think that what Brandon is suggesting accomplishes most of that. And even the public perception of having them present during the deliberations is very problematic. And so I think that doing it in writing via a memo actually makes sense, because then we have it documented, and then it almost doesn't require, but it certainly indicates a desire for the police to respond to what our concerns are. And so other people on the committee.
Yeah, Doug, this is Kevin. I'm still not exactly sure what you're referring to with Brandon's memo. I'm not sure how that correlates to what we're doing, because it's clear to me, based on what I've heard today, that I don't believe that people are completely informed about how this works, because we've been on this board now, or the now commission, going on 4 years, and or at least I have, and Nancy's doubled that. And this is a small window of opportunity for them to hear our issues with not just something specific that the police have done and things we disagree with, but to hear our ideas to make it better. And that's when they hear these things, and they've heard things before and conceded to our points and changed things about cases. Those things go away when we have this us versus them mentality. There should be no adversarial type of scenario where you're trying to work together to make changes for things, but we view them as an adversary. That just doesn't make any sense. You don't accomplish anything from that position. And I think that a lot of changes have been made so far. A lot of really positive changes have been made from the fact that they can hear our frustrations on things that might be within policy and have been considered legal, but that we feel like doesn't go with something that the community would expect, or that we would even expect in that position, if we were in the same position as the person whose case we're dealing with. And this isn't a situation where police are present at a time where the community can't be because it's secretive. It's because we're going over case specific matters about an individual's grievance, and there's confidentiality to protect that person's process. That's why this isn't a community open forum for during these discussions. There's a lot of private, personal, sensitive, confidential information. That's why it's done not in a public setting, not because we're not being transparent. In addition to that, the whole jury comment, I want to be clear that when we've discussed back and forth and argued with internal affairs about a case that we disagree with, and find faults, and we've already gone back and forth, and they've already gone to lieutenants and captains to get explanations for certain things, and then we find that it is in policy or not in policy. When we go to present the case, when the team presents the case that day, IA already knows what that case is. They already have the complete report, right? So that's it's not a surprise what the findings of that team have already came up with are. For us to then vote on it as a team, again, that's when these other team members might have a legal question or something very specific that the board can't answer because we're not lawyers. And that's when they chime in and explain what it is and clarify something deeper. And it's worked both for them and against them, but they're still there to do it. They don't say anything. They're not part of chiming in or intimidating anyone. That's absurd. And so I think that there's a few people that are hearing this thinking it goes a certain way and it actually doesn't. And now we're trying to divide and make it us versus them, which is exactly the wrong message when you're trying to affect positive changes. And it would be, if you could though, if you could either maybe Brandon, or if you already have more information on it, Doug, I'd like to hear more about what the memo, how you're saying that would solve it.
So I can try to jump in on that a little bit. And I saw there's a couple comments in chat, and if I was unclear, I want to try to make that a little more clear. So there have also been a couple comments in the chat. It's like, in a criminal trial, it's different. I want to reiterate, this is not a criminal trial. This is an administrative action. So it's like, for example, if in my private employer, if an employee had done something wrong and HR kind of looks at the evidence to find out, does this person violate some corporate rule? That's kind of what this is. This is basically a process where we look at internal affairs, well, not internal affairs, we look at the policies and procedures for the police department and determine if an officer violated an administrative rule. So it's a little bit different. Like in an HR issue with a company, that's not an open, the public can't just show up to that. This is kind of similar. And again, I want to reiterate, this is not a criminal trial. Now, my memo issue, what I was proposing is, as Doug was saying a little bit earlier, if there's a case where maybe the officers did follow policy and procedure, but we felt what happened should have been handled differently, or maybe we feel an officer could use more training or something like that. That's what I'm proposing that memo would address, because typically what happened in the past, internal affairs would be there when we'd have those comments and we could say, hey, I know the officer technically followed the rules, but the way they handled it really escalated the situation. We have concerns about that. In the past, they were there to verbally hear it. So what I'm proposing is we would, instead of having them there to verbally hear what our concerns were, is we would write a memo to state what those concerns were. Like say, for example, we felt an officer needed some additional training, maybe some de-escalation and options, things like that. That's what I would propose. The memo would kind of take over where they would verbally hear it in the past. So it's a little bit different, but that's, I think we're trying to do the happy medium. And again, as I said, I think there's two different issues. Is the department there? And when I say the department, I mean internal affairs. Are they there to hear comments and during the voting, which currently they are not? That's what we're debating today, is do we have them in or not? The other thing we're hearing from comments is something wholly separate, where people don't want them there at all. And because of the Brown Act, we can't really debate that on this meeting, because we have to put it on the agenda and give public notice so people can chime in and talk about that. But I hope I clarified what the purpose of the memo is a little bit. It's really to kind of address areas where we feel the department or an officer could have done something better or differently. And we want to make sure the department is aware that we disagree. Now, obviously, they'll see that in our report. Most reports, if we disagree, we're going to say why we disagree. Again, what we can do is we can even agree with comment on something. So say an action was exonerated, the commission can either agree, just basically, yeah, we agree it was exonerated, means it was justified, it was legal, it happened, and there was a reason for it. Or we can agree with comment to say, yeah, we agree it was within policy, but we had concerns about X, Y, and Z. So I think really there's kind of two areas there. The comment, I think, would address it, and I think the memo would kind of formalize it. And I would propose that we'd probably send that memo to the chief of police as well as the captain of internal affairs.
Okay. And so I think process-wise, and correct me if I'm wrong, Charmaine, but when we got guidance from the city when we first went to a virtual meetings, they recommended that we not have discussion in the chat and the chat be simply used for procedural things. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and so we probably should not be engaging in chat back and forth because we had the opportunity for public comment and commissioners can make their comments publicly instead of in chat. There are two committee members who haven't weighed in yet. Do either of you, Joe or Diana, wish to speak?
Yeah, I would like to weigh in. It's very clear of the public comment, and I'm very respectful of the public comment. At the same time, it's very, very unfortunate that in our closed meetings that the public is not there, and they as been pointed out by our other commissioners, that the process that we have is to me is very important to have the police there. They do not chime in on any of our discussions. They're only there when we ask questions. So that I think that is very, very important. And to be able to not have them in there and to be able to perform that function, we would not really be doing a thorough job in what the public expects us to be. As far as the intimidation, as far as our voting, I think we've taken care of that. They're not in they're in the waiting room when we do vote. But I think it helps our process. It has worked. I have not seen it not work, and so I would think that we would lose a lot of our capability to make decisions when we have questions. If the police were not there to go ahead and explain a particular policy or so on, we make the decision. They don't make the decision for us, but they are there to support us. So I would be in favor of having the police there.
To clarify, you're in favor of having the police there for the deliberations, but not the vote. Is that correct?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And that is going to be my vote unless something changes here with Diana.
I agree.
Diana?
I agree with Joe. I said, let's make it very clear that the police are only there in the room to comment on policy and procedure. They're not giving us input on what the teams have done or any of those kinds of things. So they're simply to clarify if we have a question about the policy or some concern about the implementation of that policy. So my idea is, I do believe that it's important for them to hear what we say and not read what we say, because there's time lost in sending memos, and I just think that they should be there and hear when the whole commission is there and the concerns that we raise about policies and procedures. That's
I would like to say one thing more is that I am very, very respectful of the comments that I've heard from the public. But I'd also like to say to the public is trust us, because we are very serious in what we do. And from everything that we have said, that's the way that I particularly feel that is the most effective way that we can go ahead and perform our job, is to be able to have the police department. So that would probably be my last comment.
Okay, so do I hear a motion?
I would move then to continue to have the police department on our deliberation.
I second it.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, Kevin, are you a member of the Rules Committee?
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I'm not.
Okay, and so we allow commissioners to attend and participate in the discussion, but they don't make motions and they don't vote.
I'll second.
Okay, and
Go for it.
and I guess I want to correct what Joe said. He said to continue to allow them during deliberations. Currently, under our new policy, they are not present during deliberation. So the motion would be to allow representatives from the police department to be present during the deliberations, but not the vote. Is that correct, Joe?
Yep. Yes, that is correct.
Okay, and
You think that's what I said? Maybe it wasn't.
yeah, but you said continue to have them present in the deliberations, and
Yeah.
Your motion is to change the policy. Okay, is there anybody else who wishes to speak? No. I'm going to speak. Okay, Nancy.
I second Joe's motion, but I believe that we should keep the policy the way that it is right now, that they are there for the presentation part when the team is presenting the case, that we understand that a 3-person team has reviewed and discussed the case with IA if necessary and asked all their questions, that when the team brings their report in front of a 23-person commission, there are understandably people on the commission that have questions the team didn't think of, and therefore the police department can answer those questions during the presentation. I'm in favor of them leaving the room during our deliberations when we're expressing our opinions. I don't think they inhibit this group of commissioners from stating their mind, to be honest with you, although when I got on the board 12 years ago, some people were intimidated just by the presence of the police. They've calmed down a lot. They understand their position now better than they did 12 years ago, and they only speak when spoken to. It's really nice. But I do think they should be out of the room because we may want to say things among ourselves that they don't need to hear all of it. And I do think it's important for them to be out of the room because the impression that their presence could change a vote is unnecessary. They really don't need to be there during the vote. And I think that's a good thing. So I'm going to oppose Joe's motion because I want the things to stay the way they are right now. I want them to be there for the presentation part and out of the room for our deliberations and our vote. Thank you.
Okay.
And then Doug, public comment's officially over, but there's a hand from Chris. I don't know if you want to allow them to.
Now, public comment's
speak.
already over, and so we need to follow the Brown Act.
Okay,
and so
just want to bring it up.
Can we restate the motion? Because there's just so many.
Yeah, we already had the motion. The motion is to allow the representatives from the police department, which per our procedure, allow the representatives from the police department to be present for the deliberations, but not the vote. Okay. Does everybody understand the question? Does anybody else want to speak before we vote? Okay. Charmaine, do you want to call the roll?
Sure. Committee Chair Case.
No.
Chair Brandon. Hilpert.
I'll vote no.
Commissioner Dent.
No.
Commissioner Craver.
I made the motion, so yeah, let's say yes.
Okay, and that is it. So we have,
Did you call Nancy?
My name?
oh, I'm sorry. Commissioner Vaughn.
No.
Okay,
And I don't think it requires a motion to, unless anybody disagrees, to do what Brandon suggests, to give, to have the commission, if they have something that is said during the deliberations that they want to bring to the attention of the department, to put that in a memo. Okay, and so that is the recommendation of the Rules Committee is that there be no change to the policy and that we do not allow representatives from the police into the room during the deliberations. Something that we need to discuss, and we don't have to discuss it today, is how we're going to do this operationally when we move back to in-person meetings, because it works fairly conveniently now that we have waiting rooms on Zoom. It may be a little bit more awkward when we meet in person, so we may need to maybe hear all the cases presented first, and then dismiss the department, and then do all of the deliberations and the voting together, rather than doing, moving in and out of the room like we do currently. But anyway, I'd want to make it clear that this is a recommendation from the Rules Committee to the full commission. And again, the recommendation is that the police department not be present during the deliberations nor the vote. And that the commission itself will be voting on this matter on our recommendation at our meeting next Tuesday. And so now we will move back to item number 1. And thank you to the members of the public who took the time to send your comments via the web form. And again, those will be attached to the minutes, and to those who took the time this morning to come and listen to us debate this issue and to express your own comments. The second issue is the process of streamlining the procedure for case report writing. And the issue that has arisen is given the number of cases that we have, because we've had a significant increase in the number of cases and we have quite a backlog. And we're going to continue to have an increased caseload with the new commission, because we will soon also be reviewing not only internal affairs investigations arising from complaints, but we also will be reviewing internal investigations that don't arise from complaints, as well as reviewing the reports from our independent investigators. And so we're going to have a lot on our plate when the full commission is established. But in the interim, it's been suggested that to work more efficiently, that we come up with a process of streamlining the case report writing, and maybe also with the review itself. For example, some teams are, rather than having everybody listen to everything, they're having one person on the team take the lead on each case, and they listen to all the interviews and watch all the body-worn camera, and they flag those that are significant for the rest of the team to look at. But the other issue is whether or not our extensive reports that we have to write, which, as I mentioned on the previous item, tend to be an average of 10 pages, can be done in a more streamlined fashion. So that's the issue. So before we begin discussing it, let's see if there is anybody from the public who wishes to comment on that issue. If so, please raise your hand. And I don't see any. Oh, there is one hand raised, and so the name there, but it's 61975
7500.
Okay, so if that is you, if you can, well, now they're muted.
Well, I just allowed them to talk. They just have to unmute.
Okay. So if you can unmute yourself and speak.
You are unmuted.
Yes, hi.
regarding that with streamlining, I just want to, my name's Matt Wallstrom. I also submitted a web form earlier. With streamlining, it's very, very important that when you're it sounds like some of this is wanting to farm this out to individual members to take on certain cases and so forth, and sort of brief, sort of like individuals as subcommittees almost on these. I do want to caution against that because there is the tendency, I know from serving on community boards myself, that then there is a deference given to that individual interpretation of the case, and a tendency to then not look at it as a group, and to just sort of defer, like I said, defer to that. And I would want to make sure that the caution against any kind of assigning things from a central area. Make sure that everybody is able to pick and choose what cases are of interest to them, and to also ensure that everybody is able to look at all of the information and is encouraged to look at all the information in all of the other cases, to at least be briefed ahead of time, so that they're not relying on just one person's opinion.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other public comment? Okay. Okay, so we will now then go to, and I'm getting some feedback. So somebody must, Brandon, there you are. I think he had his phone still on. Okay, so thank you. Let me, if you're willing, Kevin, have Kevin speak first, because he's the one who brought this issue to the cabinet. And so if you have some thoughts on this, Kevin.
Yeah, so I didn't consider it being an issue of one person looking at the BWC or the officer testimony or any of the other information and then explaining it to the rest of the team. I still think that each person should review the facts of the case, but where something has to change is we're writing sometimes 9 to 15 page reports saying essentially the same thing over and over again that's already there, and we're a review audit model, right? So we should be able to review the IA case, review the report, and then vote on whether or not we agreed that it was within policy or not in policy. So I think that it's redundant to keep writing these intense reports for things that say exactly the same thing. That's not rubber stamp, but what I'm saying is where it's clear that the IA finding was correct, we don't need to elaborate why we came to that conclusion. The facts are already there for that. The reasoning's already there. We should be able to do what audit review models do and essentially have a very thorough checklist that, yes, the BWC was viewed, the medical reports were viewed, the coroner's report was viewed, the audio for the witnesses was listened to, the audio from the officer's interview with internal affairs was reviewed and listened to. The team, as a team, deliberated on the case, and then now we agree or disagree. We should only be writing something, a report where we actually type out something should be when we disagree and we find against them, and then we give our reason for that, as opposed to every single allegation as it stands now. We write an entire opinion on that too, which we already have a reason for. So what I'm trying to have change is we can get through this massive backload of cases if we do what audit review teams are intended to do, which is audit and review, not write entire reports as if we were the ones finding the facts and then presenting it. So that's what I'm looking to streamline, not streamlining past the review itself where each member is not looking at the case. That obviously would not serve the community well. but to cut out the redundancy.
Okay, Nancy, you have your hand raised?
Yes. So I don't think that cutting out all of the description is a good idea, Kevin. When we present to the full commission, we need to have something there to justify our agreement with IA. What I'm opposed to is the copying of IA reports and the massive amounts of information that is transferred from the IA report into our report. I think it's unnecessary. I do think the intent of our report is to be a summary, a short summary for an allegation where the team agrees with IA. We probably need to just write about a half a page. You have to give the board, the commission, something on which to base their vote to agree with the team. You have to have something. And when you have a disagreement, then of course you go into a lot more discussion with IA to begin with, and you would necessarily write a full evaluation of that allegation or that other finding or whatever it is. But we have for years, and Doug was part of this years ago, the idea was that our report, our CRB report, now our CPP report, should be a summary, not a restatement of everything. And I've been upset for the last year because people have started writing reports that go into the 18 pages and stuff. It's been absurd. Doug wrote a wonderful report for a case we had that had like 11 allegations. And Doug wrote it, and some of the allegations were addressed in our report as like 3 or 4 lines that referred back to the first allegation where the information was included there. And the report just said, refer back to allegation number 1. And I found this and the team agrees. And it can be done that simply, Kevin. That's what's supposed to happen. That's what I wish people were doing. I think we can reduce our reports, but not to the point where we don't have any information just because we agree with IA, because the full commission doesn't have access to the IA report.
Okay.
That's it.
And, I agree with actually both Kevin and Nancy, and I would like to propose that we do 2 things. Number 1 is that we make the IA report available in the meeting folder. So that the entire IA report is available for any commissioner to look at prior to the meeting. And that we, on a trial basis, ask teams to write reports that are more in line with our audit reports, but could be longer depending upon the complexity of the case. And so it could be a report that looks very similar to an audit report and there's only a couple of pages, or if it's a very complex case that requires lots of discussion, the team can write a 10-page report, but that we leave it to the discretion of the team to write up a summary of it, similar to the format of an audit report, but allowing the team the discretion to include as much detail as they think that is necessary for the commission to come to a, I see your hand, Nancy, to come to a full conclusion. And along with that, that's why I think it's important that the IA report to be available for everybody on the commission to look at. So if in looking at the the summary report, they have a question, they can go look that up. And for example, I would suggest that we not put all of the policies into our report. Those policies are in the IA report. And so if somebody reviewing it has a question regarding the policy, they can go and look at the IA report. There's not a need for us to copy the policy and put it in our report. And so perhaps the streamlining is streamlining is not intended to mean that we're going to not include essential information it is that we're not going to have lengthy reports that include a lot of redundant and unnecessary information for the team to make their case. And so it could be, I don't know if that makes sense. And maybe we can do this on a trial basis, so we can, experiment with what those reports would look like. And that would allow, I think, us to get through our cases in a quicker fashion, and then we can give feedback to each other of whether or not we think there should be more detail, or whether we think the reports are too detailed, or whether we think we ought to go back to our current very rigid structure of the reports. And Nancy?
Doug, I think that the way that you stated it is great. This is something that we should have done a long time ago. This has been very, very frustrating. The procedure that we've had, but what we need to streamline it. And the what you outline is what would be the proposed procedure. I think is right on. I think it would help us greatly. I think it would speed up the case presentation, and it would help us with the backlog is what it is. But however, though, some of these cases that we've had, which is 12 and 14 pages, and repeating the same thing over and over and over again, plus the fact it's taking time to go ahead and write up all of the procedures. Let the people or the commission read those in the IA report, so we don't have to put that in and write that in our report. So I'm in totally agreement.
Okay, I see Nancy's hand raised and Charmaine's hand raised, so I'll go Nancy first and Charmaine.
Okay, this is why I love working with Doug Case. He's always right there. And I want to point out to everybody that our procedure does not require, in fact, our procedure prohibits copying large pieces of the IA report. We are absolutely always been trying, at least for the last 5 or 6 years, trying to get people to write summary reports, not copy everything. So that part's already in place, or should have been all along. And I just have been so frustrated that people have not been paying attention. Also, I'd like Kevin to be the one to write a report to show us what he has in mind. I'd like to see it, Kevin. Thank you.
Okay, Charmaine?
I lowered my hand because I was just, and I should have kept it up, but I was just thinking that maybe we should, and I know you mentioned like not including the policies and the procedures in the reports, but at least put a citation of the name and the, that in the report.
Oh, yes, and sometimes it may be necessary, like if a conclusion rests on a particular phrase in the policy, then we might quote that, which is what we do in the audit reports. And so in the audit reports, we don't include the whole policy, but occasionally we will quote a small portion of the policy that is applicable to the case itself. So it sounds like we have somewhat of an agreement here, and we can try this on a trial basis and see how that works. Charmaine or Brandon, can you see if it's possible to get the IA report put into the into the meeting case folder, so that when teams when you're reading, so that when commissioners are reading through the reports, if they have a question that's not answered in the teams summary, they can look at the full IA report, and that probably will answer their question. And so it may also save time in the meetings themselves. Nancy, is your hand still raised, or did you want to say something else?
I lost this. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Doug, just to answer your question, a lot of feedback there, sorry. I was going to say, to answer your question, I'm actually going into internal affairs at 11:30 today. I'll ask to see if we can get that set up.
Okay.
And also, is there going to be some type of revision to the procedures?
I think we would, I I think we ought to do it on a trial basis, and then we can go back and write the procedures accordingly. And so essentially I guess the proposal would be to allow the teams to be flexible in terms of the report writing template to to write it up similar to an audit, but perhaps with more detail as necessary. And I kind of have an idea of what I think it should look like. Kevin may have an idea, Nancy may have an idea, and so we can experiment with it. And then after we see it and get feedback from the other commissioners saying, yeah, this is what we think it should look like, then we can have the rules committee go back and perhaps even a much more simplified document than the multi-page document that we have for the report case writing.
I know what I do. Doug, I don't know where there's a lot of boilerplate that we put in, like the face page has a format. We could reduce that. We do have the resource table. We do have a table at the end for changes. We do have a place to put team issues after the vote. There's stuff that we have in there that's important and takes up, so we have like maybe 4 pages worth of boilerplate stuff, including the face page and the resources table. It's almost a page long. And there's a lot of stuff we already have in there. So the body of the report is what we're worried about reducing, I hope.
Okay, just as long as we keep like the front page and the chart and things like that.
Yes,
Those
yes.
things are important for us to capture the statistics for the report.
Yeah, the chart and so forth. But for example, all of the information regarding the names and the ages and so forth, all that's in the IA report. And so I remember,
Copy.
yeah, it's not anymore, and they don't put it on anymore. And so on a recent case, I literally spent 45 minutes just doing the front page with the information that isn't really necessary. And if it is necessary, then you can mention it. And so if the age of the complainant is important to understand the case, then you can mention that it was a 90-year-old woman or whatever.
I think the front page, that information for the stats is so important because that's what we put into the open data portal.
Oh yeah.
And then also internal affairs, they remove, after the meetings, they remove their internal affairs report out of the meeting file. So it's done like that. So, you know, with limited staff right now, I think we should continue to do that so I can be able to capture that information into the spreadsheets as well as the open data portal.
Okay, and so maybe maybe Charmaine can share with us, not right now, but share with us at some point exactly what it is that goes into the data portal, and so that we can include that information in our report.
Yeah, all of the information that's on that front spreadsheet goes into the Excel spreadsheet. So if there's any information, we track that information. The names of the complainant and any type of identifying information does not go into the open data portal, but it is in our Excel spreadsheet. So that's what we capture.
Okay, but you just have the name, you don't have their weight and
No, we have the addresses, names, gender, ethnicity, the demographics, all of that. Which division it took place in, all of that information goes into our Excel spreadsheet.
Okay. So, but why don't we have, if this is okay with Kevin and Nancy, we will have Kevin, Nancy, and I write up a report as we think that it should be, and we'll be the guinea pigs, and I'll check with Charmaine so we make sure that the information that she needs is put into our report, because that is a good point that once we hear the case, we no longer have access to the IA report. And we may want to talk about that going forward. I think as an independent commission, we can request that we be given those reports and that we keep those reports. I don't think there's any legal prohibition against us keeping those reports in our files. But that's a topic for another day, which may require some discussion with the police department.
Yep. Doug, for what you said, I just have one question is I have never referred to you as a guinea pig. So.
So I will take that as a compliment. And, okay.
Kevin, are you okay with it?
Yeah, I'm fine doing a report showing pretty much like what I wanted to show or intend.
Okay.
And then, I'll obviously be open for all sides to critique it and say, maybe there's little things here or there that's not relevant to me, but it's relevant to you. And you might think as a larger whole, it'd be relevant to everyone. And then we can just modify it accordingly and then have a nice short format.
Okay, good.
Okay, I don't think it requires a motion. I think we can simply say that this is what we're going to do. And then after we may have a motion later after we complete the trial. But I think that we have the ability to simply report out that we've agreed to have the three of us prepare a streamlined report on a trial basis and to get feedback from the rest of the commission in doing that. Okay.
It will take training.
So will the other commissioners, will the other teams be allowed to do this as well?
I think maybe it'd be best to have to do the trial basis that I suggested, having three of us do it as prototypes, and rather than letting everybody interpret it on their own. And then after we have kind of a group consensus, then we can begin doing it for everybody. And so I will take the next case that I'm going to be writing up, which I haven't started yet, but I've looked at, and so it'll be perfect one to do. And so if Nancy and Kevin can do the same, the next case that they haven't started writing up yet, if they could write it up in a streamlined format, and we can present it to the commission, and if it looks good, then after we have a consensus, then everybody can begin doing that. And I think also this will help the new commission in the long run, because we do a lot of tedious work. It is time consuming, and with our new duties, we need to find more efficient ways of doing things, and this is one way of doing that. And then, the new commission, once they're appointed, if they want to go a totally different route, they are free to do so. Okay, those are the only items on the agenda. It is almost 11 o'clock. I thought we were going to take 2 hours, and we've got it done in an hour and a half. But I think we've had a productive meeting. And so the last item on the agenda is to adjourn. Is there any objection to adjourning?
No.
Your hand is raised, Charmaine. Are you objecting?
I'm just kidding. Great job.
Okay, then we adjourn. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Nancy was waving her hand.
Okay.
I don't